We are talking entrepreneurship, leadership, and also AI today on the show with one of my favorite humans on the planet, and definitely a mentor and role model for me in entrepreneurship and business. His name is Scott Duffy. He's an entrepreneur, author, keynote speaker. He's the founder of AI Mavericks, which we will talk about in the end of the episode. And I got my mind blown about AI, and I hope you do too. And wow, I mean, Scott, well, I asked him to tell you, so hopefully you went a little, but he started his career at 20 years old working for Tony Robbins and has been on an incredible entrepreneurial journey, including doing a lot of interviews for entrepreneur.com. Also, while he was working for Tony Robbins, he has been around a lot of very impactful people. And so I asked for him to share some of the lessons that he's learned from those interviews and also from his own incredible entrepreneurial journey. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that, but just to give you some highlights, he sold a company to Richard Branson. He really helped put Yahoo and Fox Sports, CBS Sports, like helped in the early days of them getting on the internet, so he has done some really interesting things and he's still up to some interesting things with this AI stuff. So I asked him to share some of that with you guys. And I really just wanted to have Scott on so that you could see some of the mindset that he possesses, the wisdom that he carries in terms of the personal development that it requires to be able to be in such positions in life. And he's the best. I hope you guys get a lot out of this episode. We'll get into it. Here is Scott Duffy. Okay, Scott, yay. This has been a long time coming. So many of my clients and people have heard about you. If you guys, you'll recognize some of the stories, and I'm so glad to get them from the horse's mouth. I have so much respect for you, not only in the business world, but especially as a person. So in terms of leadership, heart-centered leadership, remaining a good freaking person through the entire success world, that you are like the model of that. And I so respect that. And so
But
thank
but
you.
when things crashed, I called you and I said, "Can you help figure out how I get well?" And you are the reason that I believe you're the reason I'm sitting here today because I was so far off. I mean, you really helped me to figure out what was going on inside of my body and kind of what problems needed to be addressed,
Mhm,
like physically, physiologically. We did a ton of testing, right?
mhm,
We did a ton of
mhm.
testing. We looked at food, we looked at all of those different things. And today I feel great and I feel strong and I feel powerful. And it's 100% because of you.
Well,
So thank
thank
you.
you, Scott. It was so exciting for me because I'm like, wow, there's some really obvious things that we can do that are very easy, and you're already performing at these levels. Like, whoa, what's possible for Scott? So
Yeah,
thanks
yeah.
for allowing me to help you with what I did, and you've helped me so much too. And I'm so excited for the audience to get to hear from you today because not only have you had a really powerful personal journey in entrepreneurship, but you have interviewed so many leaders and you're
Yeah,
such an amazing storyteller and
yeah.
able to tell those lessons in an effective way. So you guys are in for a treat. Let's get rolling.
Bro.
First story. I was like, Scott, I'm going to ask you the Les Brown story straight out of the gate.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll tell this story and then we'll kind of backtrack to some other things. But will you share the story of when you were doing, I think it was your first big speaking gig, like big stage, like
Yeah.
smoke, lights, crazy. And will you tell the story of what happened with Les Brown?
Oh, I know that story. So I was so Les Brown. So I first started listening to motivational like books on tape when I was about 19 years old, 1920. So this is a long time ago. And at that time, Les Brown was coming up as a motivational speaker. And in my life, you know, Les Brown has always been my favorite motivational speaker. Like
Me
I
too.
looked
He's
up,
so
people
great.
have people that they look up to.
Right.
And to me, that was my guy. And I
Yeah.
studied him and I studied how he walked across the stage. I studied how he prepared. I studied all this stuff. And I remember I was speaking at an event and Les Brown was on, I think he was on after me, because I would never be on before, like after him, right? So he was obviously on after me. And I'm standing next to him and we were talking. We'd gotten to know each other. And for whatever reason, and I think it may have been because he was right there, I told him, I said, I was about to go and I said, Les, I'm nervous. And he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, Scott, as a speaker, nervousness is the ultimate form of selfishness. And I said, why? And he said, because it means you're only thinking about you and not your audience, what you're able to give. And it was just like one of those times in your life where, like, first of all, your stomach drops to the floor, right? And you're like, whatever. But for me, that was such an impactful message. And I think that taking that a step further, one of the things that I've really learned in life that's been valuable is to focus on being more interested than interesting.
Yeah.
And I think we get caught up in that trying to be so
Yeah.
interesting where we forget to listen and we
Mm.
forget to deliver value. And
Yeah.
so, again, just props to Les Brown, just the best.
I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I've thought of that, when I've gone to speak, like, as I connect to the audience and I'm thinking about them, I always remember that story. And it does completely take the nervousness away.
It
So, and
does.
also just socially anxious people, just throwing that out there, something to remember.
And wait, can I share another speaking
Yeah,
story? Because I
please.
think if we're talking about speaking, we're talking about presenting. I think that this lesson was also just really valuable. So another one of my hero speakers is a guy named Harvey McKay.
Mm,
Love Harvey McKay, icon. Also, so when I worked for I used to work for Tony Robbins. You know this.
mm,
Like I was 20 when I first got hired, so it was a long time. Tony was 30. Like so, and at that time, Harvey McKay had a book out called "Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive," and he was like the guy in his
mm,
particular niche. Always looked up to Harvey. So I was throwing an event in where I live. So I'm in Newport Beach. I was throwing an event nearby, and I'm like, who could? And Harvey had a new book coming out. And I called and I asked if he'd be willing to speak. And he said, yes. He said, but here's the thing. You have to pick me up at the airport and take me back. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, oh,
yes.
yeah. I'm like, of course I'm going to do that. So what happened was I pick him up at this plane, gets in my car, and we start driving to the event. And so the whole time we're driving, I'm asking him, like, I like lock the doors and put up the windows and I jail him and I ask every question that I could have of like for one of my icons. And I'm like, Harvey this, Harvey that, Harvey, Harvey, whatever. So we get to where the event is and I just keep circling because we're
That's what I
early.
was thinking. Oops, got
So
lost.
we're circling. And then he looks at me really concerned and he goes, Scott, he goes, what time does the event start? And I said, well, you're on at such and such a time. So I figured that I'd have him there, right, in enough time before that. Because I was kind of raised around this world when I was younger of motivational speaking, where the big brand speaker is like behind the stage. And then there's like the big entrance and nobody gets to talk to that person, like all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And he said to me, he goes, no, what time does the first person who's working on the event arrive? And I
Wow.
said, really? And I said, well, they're there and they're set up and whatever. He goes, then I need to be there. And I said, why? And I'm thinking, why? You're Harvey McKay. And he said, because I want to be at the door and I want to shake everybody's hand who comes in. I
Mm,
want to get to know every single person. And he taught me this lesson about interacting with the group before you go on. And he talked about when you do that, what happens is, first of all, when you're on stage, you walk out to this really warm audience, right?
right,
Second, people see you interacting with people and you're much more relatable in that way.
right.
Third, if you're really more interested than being interesting, you're learning what things are most important to that group and what you should address so you're more relevant. So I thought
Mm,
to myself, gosh, damn, what a lesson. And he said,
mhm.
but I got one more. And I said, what's that? He said, always carry a bag of Lay's potato chips with you. And I said, can I carry like Doritos Cool Ranch? Like, why do I have to carry Lay's? And he said, no. He said, the old school yellow bag Lay's potato chips. And I said, why? He said, because when you're a professional speaker and you're traveling, he said, you're going to stay in a lot of hotels and you're going to use your voice a lot. And he said, what's going to happen is it's going to affect your voice quality. He said, if you eat the traditional Lay's potato chips, there's so much oil, it will coat your throat,
Oh
and the
my god.
salt will activate your salivary glands. So you'll have this incredible voice quality. So he opens his bag. Homie's got some Lay's potato chips. So, so the thing is, it's like the littlest things, right?
Mm,
Like the 1% over a day, a week, a month, a year. Like that's what it is. And I
Mhm.
think that the problem is that most people want to get from here to here overnight.
Right.
But what you got to love, like Kobe Bryant's office was right above where I used to work. Kobe Bryant used to say that the hard is the journey. And when you learn, like, that's the great part. And when you learn to love the hard and that part of the journey is when the world really opens up to you.
Mm, Thanks for sharing that. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your journey so the audience can understand you a little more. So you mentioned, I know your story. They don't. You started off a young guy. What, 20? You were 20 when you started with Tony
Yeah,
Robbins,
yeah.
right? And then I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but somehow you started working with like what was it, CBS Sports, or can you tell about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
whole?
yeah. So I worked as a young guy. I got in this like car accident in college. I had to drop out of school for a little bit. I had two brain hemorrhages. I was recovering. I started listening to motivational books on tape. And when I got better, by the way, for all of you young people, tape, MP3, like that's what we used to listen to. So I was listening to these, and then I decided when I went back to school, I wanted to intern for anybody I listened to, and they all lived like San Diego was the Silicon Valley for speakers back then. I applied to as an intern for Tony Robbins. I got a job. So I started working for Tony Robbins. I got to promote Les Brown when I was young. I worked for a guy named Jim Rohn and promoted him. And then eventually I went from the training business to tech. And I was really early in consumer internet and like super long story short, wrote a little business plan for Yahoo when they had 10 people that was like theoretical on how you'd make money on a website and how you build an ad sales team and things like that. And then worked really early for companies that became CBSSports.com, then NBC Internet, and then was involved in the launch of FoxSports.com also. So kind of like that whole internet thing.
And I'm really grateful for that part of your journey because when I came to a mastermind you were putting on in your area, you have like a lot of connections in the sports industry, and I got to benefit from some of those. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, yeah,
Forever grateful.
yeah,
Will never ever not brag to my kids that I sat in LeBron James' chair in his locker
yeah,
room one time at one of your
yeah,
events. So yeah, Scott doesn't do it small.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
good.
very inspiring business leadership lessons also. So okay, so from there, like at some point in your journey, you also started doing a lot of interviews, right, for
Yeah.
entrepreneur and different podcasts and all sorts of different, leadership experiences you were putting together for people. And you've interviewed over 1,000 founders,
About a
CEOs,
thousand,
highly
yeah.
successful people, like names people know, right? Like I don't know, throw out maybe who are some of the recognizable names of people you've interviewed.
I mean, so many. I mean, I had the chance to work, for Tony Robbins company. So
Right,
asking Tony to Richard Branson, to Damon John, to, just like a whole bunch of people,
right.
athletes, entertainers, and I started doing this when I was a kid. And I think it was inspired by Tony because, Tony used to always ask this question, what makes people do what they do? And what is the difference? The difference that makes the difference between the number one person at anything and everyone else. And it's actually funny. You and I have talked about this before that over the years when I would ask that question to people, I'd always get a different answer. So I say, "What's the difference that makes a difference?" And like, for example, to Tony Robbins, Tony may say something like state management. And what that would mean to him is the people that are the most successful, learn how to take whatever comes at them and repackage it in their mind in a way that moves them forward. They really have learned how to
Mhm.
master their physical and emotional states. If I ask Tony Hawk, right? Tony Hawk, the skateboarder, what he talked about how you just got to you got to keep going, right? You got to keep going. You got to put in the work. And I remember him saying that, some of the most iconic tricks that he did would take up to 10 years of failing before he got it right for the first time.
Wow.
If you talk to Sarah Blakely, I mean, she talked about hustle. So, when she was starting Spanx, and she first got into department stores, I remember they like put her and she got like the trials to see if they would buy her stuff. They put those racks in the back. So what did she do? She pretended she worked at the store and she moved them to the front, right? And she just hustled. She didn't ask for permission. You talk to like Sean, like the first guy to win, Sean White, the first guy to win the Olympic gold medal in snowboarding, also an amazing skater. What is it? And he would talk about goal setting, but it wasn't real in visualization. But he never would visualize himself going from where he was to achieving the goal. What he did is he always started from having achieved the goal and looking back and remembering. So he
Nice.
told me a story about how when he was training for the first, Olympic competition for the snowboard, he really his real goal was he wanted to be on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. And he thought if he won, he might get that chance. So what he did is he went and he had a custom outfit made. And he would get ready in the morning as if he had already won the gold and was on his way to the photo shoot. And if you take a look online in Shaun White Rolling Stone cover, you'll see what it was. So like here's the thing. It over the years, depending on who I talked to, I got a different result, except for the last 18 months. Since ChatGPT came out in November of 22, it's crazy. It doesn't matter who I talk to, they all have the same answer. And the answer is this. They have this total like passion, this obsession, this maniacal thing for learning, for learning. And here's why. It used to be that the pace of change was relatively slow, right? So like you could literally, like when I was growing up, you could look outside your window and you could see your competition. You knew if they were growing because they were expanding their space, or if they were shrinking because they go out of business.
Right.
But the internet changed everything. And the
Mm.
pace of change went from linear to exponential.
Yeah.
And now with AI, we're going from linear to exponential to really uncomprehensible or incomprehensible. That's
Yeah.
how fast that things are changing. And so I'll put it another way. 100 years ago, the average man in the US lived to be about 53 years old. I'm 54. That freaks me out. Right? So back then, it may have been good enough to be good, like good at one thing in life, but that's not the same. And so, what I would say to
Mhm.
people is this: that whatever it is that made you your superhero power, that thing that you were so great at 2 years ago, is your baggage today. And that is
Wow.
what the top entrepreneurs know.
Wow.
I've often, if you don't mind me sharing, like I've tried so hard to figure out how you like practically apply that to your life. And I think the best metaphor I've come up with is this. I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a huge Lakers fan. And a few years ago, I had a chance to do something at a Lakers thing, and Phil Jackson was there. And the question is, what is the difference? What is the difference that makes the difference between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant? Arguably the two best players that have ever played the game. And he coached both of them to 11 championships. What's the difference between those two guys and everyone else? And his answer was one word: Shoshin. 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 Shoshin is a Buddhist word and it means beginner's mind. And he said every single day when these guys stepped on the court, it was as if the first time they ever played the game. They were so open to new ideas that they were able to see really small distinctions that nobody else is able to see. And so what I would encourage people to do today is this, is really approach every day with a beginner's mind, because this world is going to be changing so fast as a result of AI over the next 5, 10 years, that is what you're going to need, and stay absolutely totally committed to learning.
Mm. I mean, you said, "How do I actually apply this in my life?" And I'm like, "You're applying that definitely." Like when I think of the quintessential entrepreneur, like your picture would be in the dictionary for me. It's like this guy, Scott Duffy, entrepreneur, you know? Um, and you've done that over and over as we've already heard a little bit about. I mean, there's more, you know. I was wondering if you could talk about there was a period where, I mean, you sold one of your companies to Virgin, Richard
Yeah,
Branson's group, you know, and then things took a turn south and you had to
yeah,
reinvent yourself again. What
yeah,
are, you know, and there's many who either probably will experience that or
yeah,
have.
yeah.
And so what lessons did you extract from that to be able to stay in that Shoshin energy and like basically reinvent yourself, which you have done so many times? I'd say you're like
Yeah.
very skilled at that.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're looking at the definition or picture of a quintessential entrepreneur, I would describe it as this: you have good days, like every day is an up and down. It's like this. It's a
Yeah.
roller coaster. And
Mhm.
everybody that I know that has been really successful at anything, particularly in business, particularly financially, has also had down periods that were like equal to the success periods,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
it's tough, right? It's tough out there. And for me personally, I had gone from working in some really cool stuff, right? For the trainer people to some really amazing internet companies, had great exits, made a ton of money. I sold a company I started to, Virgin, and it was like literally, I got to sit alongside like my hero in Richard Branson, like my literally my hero from an entrepreneur standpoint. And then in 2008, when everything was good, the market crashed, and just like overnight, I went from, having all this money and stuff like that to losing everything and literally going upside down like over $500,000. It's seemingly overnight, like it was in a hand, like it was in months, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do. And I think I did what probably just about any entrepreneur would do, which is like curl up in the fetal position in the bedroom and just like roll around for a year.
Mm.
And it was really hard. And
Yeah.
I was really proud. I didn't want to say, I didn't want to ask for help. I
Right.
didn't want to share with people what's going. By the way, it's such a common thing with entrepreneurs. Like
Mm.
if you ask any entrepreneur, how's your day? Everyone has the same answer. Great. How's your business? Great, right? Because we have to put on a brave face. I tried to put on a brave face, and it was really, really hard. And it was really hard for me. It was really hard for my family. It was hard for everybody. And then one day I got a call, and a guy that I had known who I really respect, he called me and he called me Duff for Scott Duffy. He said, Duff, he said, I heard you're looking around a company. And I said, yeah. He goes, you're hired. I'm
Mm.
like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, dude, you're hired. And I said, amazing. You have no idea, amazing. I said, what am I going to do? And he's like, what does it matter? What does it matter with where you are? What does it matter? Like I overthink everything. He said, come and have lunch with me today. And we'll talk about it. And so I went out to meet him in Pasadena that day. I lived in LA and I went to meet him and I said, what do you want? He said, well, first of all, I kind of made a decision. You're not going to run it, but you're gonna be a salesperson for me. I said, great. I said, I could use the money. Awesome. Thank you. I said, what am I going to sell? And he said this, P. And I said, what? And he said, you're going to sell P. I said, what does that even mean? And he said, I just bought a research lab and we process urine. Like, you go to the doctor's office, you pick
Yeah.
it up, it comes to us, we give a report, give it back. He said, you're gonna go to the doctor's offices and you're gonna win their urine business, their pee business. And he had a vision for me. And his vision for me was that like in a year or something, I was gonna become the king of pee. And like that was my first job offer after selling a company to Virgin. Like that's how rough it
Wow.
was.
Wow.
And did I take it? No. Like I did. I was so angry that he would offer that to me. Like I could say like I was pissed off, right? But like I was just really I was really angry about it. And I should have taken the job, but I was too prideful. And and so I did what I think most people do when things go sideways or not expected as planned, which is I doubled down in what I was doing before that had always made things work. And so
Right.
while I was doing the same thing over and over and over again, the world was changing and doing things in new and different ways. Again,
Mm.
this comes back to Shoshi.
Mm.
So I didn't
Mhm.
have that understanding at the time. And so the deeper I went into what used to work, the deeper I got into a hole, is what happened. And then, and I think a couple other things happened at that time. One is, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, when things are tough, we wait for the cavalry to come. We think
Yeah.
somebody's going to save us. The cavalry ain't coming.
Yeah.
It's lonely at that time. You got to work your way out. And it's up to you to do the work. And the best metaphor I can use is it's like a mirror. If you look into a mirror and what you see in the reflection is you with a sad face, you're not going to go to the mirror and say, hey, change that, right?
Mm.
You have to change in order for the reflection to change. And so
Right.
you have to work on yourself. And I didn't know how to do it. And one day, it was probably one of the worst days and the hardest days of my life. I pulled over to a parking lot here in Costa Mesa and I put down the seat. I was crying my eyes out. I didn't know what to do. And I called a friend of mine at the time, David Meltzer. And I said, Dave, I don't know what to do, but I know you have been through super hard. And one of the things I've learned is that people that have been through super hard are incredibly gracious about helping people go through super hard and sharing how they got out of it. I said,
Mm,
Dave, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. He was fucking awesome. He said, I'm here for you. And he said, here's what we're going to do starting today. He said, number one, four things. He said, number one, he said, you're going to take responsibility for everything. It wasn't the market, it was you. Next time, you got to be better prepared, right? It
mm,
wasn't the market, it was you. Said, number two, you got to forgive yourself for everything. And for me, that was the hardest part.
mm.
Number three, you got to find the lesson in everything. So I can do that. And number four, you got to be grateful for all of it. And I'm like, that's where you lost me. Right. But then I learned that gratitude changes everything because it shifts your focus from what you don't have to what you do have.
Mhm.
And so I started to practice that. And Dave, he made me call him every single day for a year.
Oh, wow.
And there were so many days I didn't call because I was too embarrassed to call. And he
Mm,
would be upset with me on those days and go, I am the guy that is here for you, right?
mm.
All you have to do is call me once a day. And
Wow,
and so that was, I mean, that was really the thing that got things to start to change for me.
wow.
And so again, my message to entrepreneurs is this: if you need help, I guarantee you that there are people out there that have gone through the exact same thing or worse, and they want to help you. You just have to ask.
Mm, Thank you for sharing that. Only one way to get wisdom.
That's a way. That's a way.
Oh, okay, so in terms of well, now we're kind of talking about reinventing yourself,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I would like to talk a little bit about what you're doing now,
Yeah.
from a personal curiosity standpoint, and I think the audience too, because you now have AI Mavericks,
Yeah. Yeah.
and kudos, seriously, Scott, because like, I mean, to be 54 and you're on top of AI like this, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're really walking the walk of everything you just talked about.
Yeah.
Because, I'm at the point my kids are like, why don't you just chat GPT it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot that that existed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So, what is AI Mavericks?
So basically what we are is we work with founders and we work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, leadership teams, and we basically just super simplify and demystify AI for them.
Mm,
And we teach them how to build an AI vision and strategy and a roadmap for their business.
mm,
And we put them around a group of amazing people that are committed to helping them get there.
nice.
Because when I talk to most people today about AI, see, there's this perception out there that everyone uses AI because it's all over the media. But I
Yeah.
just want to create like some reality here. The latest data shows that in May, only 6% of companies in America use ChatGPT. I'm sorry.
Six?
I'm sorry. 6% of companies in America use AI.
Wow.
Six. And we are the most progressive country in the world right now using AI.
Oh, wow.
Only 6%. But there's a perception. So when I'm talking to founders and stuff like that, they're typically stuck between this fear of missing out and the fear
Hmm.
of jumping in.
Hmm.
They don't even know where to start. And they think that they're so far behind and they're not.
Mm,
And so that's really what we do is we teach people, what they need to know and how to think about using AI in your business. We show them like all kinds of case studies and demos so that they can see what's possible. We actually do these little things with them where we show them and we teach them how to use ChatGPT in different ways, only so they can see what's possible. And then what happens is when they get more familiar, more comfortable with it, now their mind is open and they're like, okay, so how can I use this? And what I always say is this: just think of AI as a tool. It's
mhm,
just a tool to help you to solve a problem in your business.
mhm,
So let's pick let's take your goal for your company and let's ask ourselves a question. What is one thing that could prevent you from achieving your goal? And then once you figure that out, is there an AI tool that can help you
mm,
to solve that problem?
mm.
And that's just really how we approach this. And so we have a we have a conference that we do. Our next one is October 21st to 23rd in San Diego. We're just about to announce an online mastermind. It's $250 a month. We meet once a
Nice.
week. for an hour, and we every hour that you spend with us, you're gonna walk away with something that you've created that you can use that day in your business.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then we're building all kinds of certification programs right now. So you'll be able to take our certs and be able to put them on your resume and put them
Mhm.
out there, for companies as well.
Nice. Yeah, because it's one of those things, right, where we get stuck in our ways, like we kind of been
Yeah,
talking about. We get stuck in our ways. And you said something like what you were really good at 2 years ago is gonna become your baggage today, and I
yeah,
can totally see that, right? Because
yeah.
it is, what did you say? It's going incomprehensibly fast, the
It is.
exponential change that's happening because of technology. And so we get stuck in our ways when we don't realize that we could be doing something much more efficiently with way less work, paying people
Yeah,
less money for tasks that kind of bog them down when they could be doing something else for the company more beneficial, you know? And I
yeah,
think there is this resistance of, well, then I'm going to have to change, right? Then I'm going to have to
yeah.
figure this out. So to be able to just spoon feed that essentially to business owners so they can get there and see how much more easy it will make their life for them is really awesome.
You know, and people ask, "Where should I start?" And the place to start is just download the ChatGPT app or go to
Yeah.
it on your desktop and sign up and
Yeah.
just ask it a question.
Right.
What are you? You know,
Mhm.
what is ChatGPT? How do I use you? You know, just simple things like that. Um, and I think that, I got another a quick story. So that I think is a really good metaphor for this.
Yeah.
So when I was living up in the Bay Area, I went to this venture capital conference I was invited to. We couldn't tell people like that we were going to sign these NDAs or I think something like that. And when we got there, when we were checking in, everyone was given like a different color. I don't remember if it's a different color, like a different number on their shirt. And the people, you're supposed to find everybody with the same thing, same shirt. And you're on a team. And that team was going to go on a scavenger hunt for 8 hours, like 8 hours around the big island of Hawaii. And I
Mhm.
remember when I checked out, I'm like looking for people, and Sarah Lacey was one of them, and she's like this iconic writer in Silicon Valley. She's so amazing. Bill Ty, like this famous venture capitalist, Dick, who ended up running Twitter at one point, and we couldn't find the last guy. And I turned around and I literally bumped into him, MC Hammer.
No.
Remember MC Hammer, right? The
Of
dancer,
course.
Can't touch. So he an incredible entrepreneur. And I remember we went to the first clue and we were in this white van. We went to the first clue and there were these things and we me and Dick and Sarah, we can't get it. And Hammer was like disconnected. He was on his phone, said, Hammer, could you come help us out? And he read the clue. He probably read it once, like dropped the paper, like dropped the mic. And he said, do this, 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 and this. And he got it. He got it right. We went to the second clue, and Hammer got it. I think we had 8 clues that day, and I'm pretty sure MC Hammer got every one of them.
Huh.
And I remember that night I was in the bar, and I ran into him, and I said, "That was amazing. How did you do that?" And he said this. He said, "You entrepreneurs are all the same." He said, "You start here, and you want to get there, and you make everything so damn complicated in between."
Mm.
And he said, "I live my life by a very simple philosophy. I always find a way to the simplest path first.
Wow.
If you want to really prepare yourself for the next 10 years, the simplest thing you can do is just download and start asking questions in ChatGPT. That is it. It is that simple. How do I use ChatGPT? Enter. What is a custom GPT? Enter. Can you teach me how to create a custom GPT? Enter. It's
Mhm.
that simple.
Mhm.
If you want to create true value, if you're out there looking for work on a resume, let's stay simple. The number one skill you can have, or the number one thing you can have, is a certification that says you understand the basics of AI and how to use ChatGPT, and you just increased your value 35, 40% in the
Wow.
from a salary standpoint.
Wow.
That's how important that skill is today. So let's keep it really simple. Just go to ChatGPT. And if you
Yeah.
want more, come to AI Mavericks.
Nice. Yeah, and, like, I just gotta say, I'm 41. My youngest is almost 12, my oldest just graduated, and, like, I am becoming keenly aware of the fact that, like, I am entering the age group now that if we don't stay on top intentionally stay on top of what's coming,
Yeah.
we're becoming increasingly obsolete, and I don't know how else to say it because even my 11-year-old son, he wants a phone, we haven't gotten him a phone yet. He literally made me a Google Slides presentation with animation, with this whole, "Here are the reasons I think I should get a phone," and it had these, like, huge words in it, and it was very persuasive, and then he put a little star at the bottom. "No, I totally didn't use ChatGPT to make this," right? That's what he put at the bottom, and he just has this big smile on his face,
Good for
and
him.
I'm like,
Good for him.
11-year-olds are doing this,
Yeah.
my daughter, she uses it all the time, right? So if we are getting, older and we're not staying on top of these things, like we will stay in this kind of do everything the hard way, or like we're still using typewriters when other people have switched to computers kind of vibe,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
it's something to be thinking about.
When I was in college, I remember that when I've always said that I feel like I was born in 1970, and I always feel like 1970 is like this digital divide. And what I mean by that is when I was in grammar school, when I was in elementary school, the grade after me was required to take typing. And I went into high school, the grade
Mm,
behind me was required to take computers.
wow.
And when I went to college, my freshman year, there were a couple guys that were friends of mine that had a Mac, and I had an electronic typewriter, which was I thought
Whoa.
so fucking cool.
It is. It's like it's vintage now,
Yeah.
right?
So but the ability to word process, just the ability to not have to pull out whiteout. Most people don't even,
Yeah,
young me don't even know what that is, but like whiteout and literally put this white stuff over the word that you typed wrong to
right,
make it kind of disappear and match versus being on your Mac and being able
right,
to hit, backspace and have it delete the word
right.
was incredible. We're there right now with with AI and with ChatGPT.
Mm,
And the thing is, if you've never used ChatGPT or you haven't used it much, just think of it this way. Just think of it as like going to a page, like going to Google's start page, or the only thing there on that page is a search box.
yeah,
And you're already used to typing your search in there, right?
right,
The difference is the result for Google that you get is going to be pages of results with links to other websites, and you have to go try and find or piece together your answer.
right.
The difference is ChatGPT is going to tell you the answer.
Nice.
It's read every single page on the internet and it's learned the answer to the question that you have. So it's not going to, so literally in a second, you're able to get the thing that you were looking for most. Where you may, be on Google for minutes or hours or whatever trying to find what it is you're searching for.
Wow.
It's that simple, but it's like
Mm,
this much, right? It's like just small changes. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, okay, speaking of that, what are some applications for AI that people might not be considering? So maybe you're running a business, maybe you like I've got a friend who runs a business doing like fire safety supplies and businesses, the sprinklers and blah, blah, blah. Like, what are some applications for some business that maybe doesn't think or know they need AI that you could enlighten them about?
Well, I think that I'll tell you first the thing that I think you have to do, and then I'll tell you a cool application. So the most important thing that you can do to get AI to work the best for you is organize your data. So let me
Mm,
give you an example. So and here's a tool. Like here's a cool thing. So I work with a company called Delphi, and Delphi. Yeah, go to Delphi, check it out. It's amazing. And what they are is they're a cloning technology.
mm,
So I went to them and I said, they were actually demoed at our last event and in this coming event. And I said to Delphi, I said, here's the problem I have. I said, I get calls and I get texts and I get emails every day asking people about how to like start a business or scale a business or sell a business or raise money. And I don't have time anymore to take all those questions. Um, I've got books out there, but people still reach out to me. Well, here's what they've done. They've created a cloning technology that could basically imagine take everything that I've ever done, all my social media posts, all my books, all my
wow.
articles, everything I've ever, and imagine if that technology could learn it, right? It could like literally learn it. And so
Whoa.
somebody could come to my site and they could just type in or they could voice, hey, Scott, how do I raise money? And in my voice, the clone
Wow.
voice, comes the answer from all of my stuff, right?
Wow.
So when I set this up, by the way, we're launching video. So our next event, we're actually going to launch the video part of Delphi, where you can actually be talking to me and it's going to be a clone of me, but you will think it's me, right? And so how cool is that, right?
Wow.
So so imagine if you're trying to sell something, you're trying to prospect, somebody has questions, you don't need to be involved. But it took me a total of about 10 to 15 minutes to set it up. That's it. And here's
Wow.
why. Here's why. It said first, upload whatever data you have. Okay. So I had a page, I have a Google Sheet that has like all of the articles I've ever written and the link to those articles. I have a page that has a link to all of my YouTube videos, right? I have the books that I've written in a PDF form. So I literally just went to a single content folder and I just dragged everything at one time and it uploaded. It took about, I don't want to, 3 seconds, maybe 4. And it not only had uploaded it, it had already trained on the data.
What?
Then what I did is I went and this is crazy. Then what I went is I did, I think, 2 30-second voice samples where I just read something for
Uh-huh.
like 30 seconds. And that was it. So if you go to my website now, I believe we still have the original demo up. If you go to scottduffy.com and scroll to the bottom, I believe we still have that up. Or here's kind of a fun thing to do. I'm going to read something real quick. If you go to this phone number, if you call, I need my glasses, 636-342-8214. So 636-342-8214. And ask any question about starting a business, raising money, scaling a company, personal development stuff. That voice
Wow.
that you hear is my cloned voice, and I'll have a full conversation with you.
What? I'm totally gonna try it out.
But here's the key thing. And you know what? You need to do this for your business because there are probably a lot of questions that people ask you over and over again.
Mhm.
And if we can upload your books and your content, we can upload all of these. It will not only learn how to answer it will not only answer the questions for you as if it's you, but it will also do it in the way you do it. It will learn your style. So
Crazy.
it will talk just like you. And every day this technology is getting exponentially better. Let me tell you how fast it's doing that. It took so OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT, I believe they started working on their model around 2017-ish. It's 2024. So what's that? 7 years. Okay. And we've got this amazing thing, ChatGPT. The processing power of all these chips enable us to do more faster and the models to learn faster. Elon Musk just installed in the US the biggest cluster of these chips, these NVIDIA chips, which basically in the time of about 1 week learned what ChatGPT took 7 years to build. That's how
Wow.
fast it can learn the model. So that's how fast. So this is why you just have to stay committed to learning. I would say a
Yeah.
great tool to start with is Delphi. Do the cloning. And then you know what's really cool? You can also sell it as a product. You can now have a digital version of you as a coach, a digital coach to help people out. And
Wow.
instead of contacting you directly, they can go to the digital coach and they can be like, okay, Tara, I need something, I need another exercise for my abs, or my energy's been really low and I'm taking this particular supplement and whatever. Like, what do you recommend? And
Wow.
it will answer you.
It's making me think of Iron Man, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
like a really high-end Alexa or something, you know?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
insane. Okay.
Wait, one more Iron Man story,
Yeah.
because I think it's really important for people to understand why they need to learn the foundational stuff. Now, remember, I'm telling you about all this cool stuff, but only 6% of companies use AI today in the US. So we're just at the beginning. And the most important thing to do at the beginning is just use ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Just use ChatGPT. That's it. So the story I was going to tell you is I was just meeting with a company and we were talking about robotics, which is a passion of mine. And this company makes wigs. with real human hair.
Okay.
Okay. So imagine they used to do it in the US, cost of labor was too expensive. They moved it to China. They had all of these small girls, small women with tiny hands that would thread hair strand by hair strand would make these things. Can you
Mhm.
imagine
No,
that labor,
no.
right? So they just prior to me going into the office, they just got a test of a robot that can not only do that work, okay, but it can do the work faster and in a single shift replace 35 people. And the hands of the robot work so well that it can literally grab a single strand of hair from one end to the other and assemble it into a wig
Wow.
and replace 35 people in an hour. And this thing can work 24 hours. It never has to stop. But
And that
all you have to do is learn how to use ChatGPT.
And that brings me to my next thing because I'm sure you've run into it, maybe not, but the resistance to this, right? The resistance to like AI, oh, we're going to clone
Yeah.
Scott, like
Yeah.
absolutely not. Or, oh, those people need that job weaving hair or whatever. What do you say to people who have resistance to these types of technologies?
I just say welcome to unemployment. I say either welcome to unemployed an unemployed future, unless you're in a handful of industries, or welcome to your business being completely disrupted and put out of business by the competition. And it may not happen overnight, but here's the thing. There's that saying that it's not AI that will replace you. It's the person that uses AI that will replace you.
Hmm.
And for the next several years, that's going to be what I think is important to focus on, right?
Mhm.
It's using AI as a tool to be able to take the routine and the mundane tasks in your business
Right.
and assign them to robotics so
Right.
that you can focus your time on the most valuable parts of your business and the things that you do best.
Hmm.
So you like have the best, most customized like help that you could possibly have if you learn how to use it.
Hmm.
And what will happen is if you're not doing that and you're spending your time on repetitive stuff
Right.
that the technology can do, and your competition has outsourced all that to tech and they do the important stuff,
Hmm.
then that's where the difference is here.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of, like, before there were washing machines, and it's like, well, there's
Yeah.
people who wash clothes by hand for their job, and it's like, well, maybe they can find something a little more enjoyable and fulfilling for themselves instead, and we can just have the machine do it, you know?
That's a great metaphor. I mean,
Yeah,
that really is a great metaphor. It's not like I mean, what did is that the washing machine opened up time for the
right.
person who was washing to go and do other things that were valuable.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
Wow, cool, I'm really glad I asked about the AI stuff towards the end there. Wow, okay, I have used ChatGPT a little bit in my business, and I have been blown away. I'm like, "Oh, wow, this, like, perfectly summed up what I was trying to send to this client." Like, wow, and it's pretty impressive. So, yeah, I'm excited to explore it a little more and call that phone number. I'm definitely gonna have a talk with quote unquote Scott.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh man, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time. We'll
You
link up
got it.
that AI Mavericks conference. It's a conference you're having
It
in
is. So
October.
it's the AI Mavericks conference. We keep it small so we can be really hands-on. So we limit our
Cool.
things to 100 people.
Okay.
Next is in San Diego, October 21st to 23rd. I mean, we just have a sick, amazing group of people that are going to be there. And
I
here's
bet.
the thing. If you're afraid of AI, you're nervous about AI, it's the perfect place to come because
Yeah.
that is the problem. That is one of the problems that we solve. If you are trying to figure out how to implement AI in your business, where to start, who to use, who to go to for support. That's the role that we fill. And so we can help you in those ways.
Mm. And that you get the added bonus of just being around Scott and anyone that Scott attracts, like that's the value in and of itself. And then as a bonus, you're going to learn about AI stuff. But I've been to your events and they're pretty impacting.
Awesome.
So thank you for that. And we'll link up also, Scott has many books and all
Mhm.
sorts of different things I'll link up to. Scottduffy.com is his website, and you can find him online as well. And you have a podcast, right, for about the AI
I'm
stuff?
actually I'm starting a new podcast, so
Okay.
we'll have it up in about a month. We're
Okay.
producing it right now, like the stuff, and
Okay.
check out AI
Okay.
Mavericks.ai to learn more about the event.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank
So
you.
good talking with you again.
You too.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope this episode served as inspiration and something that you needed to hear in your life. If you have a friend or family member that you think would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And also, please subscribe. I have so many more amazing guests coming. I have just been so gifted and honored to meet so many incredible health professionals in my career, and I cannot wait to share their messages with you guys. So please subscribe. And if you could be so kind as to rate my show, I would really appreciate it. This podcast is honestly an intuitive call to me to help spread goodness to the world. And so if you guys can help me do that, I would really appreciate it. If you want more info on this guest, pop over to my website, check out my podcast section, and you can get links to everything we talked about in the show, and find out more about this guest and where you can go from here. Make sure you're also following me on Instagram. That is my most active platform. You can find me at Coach Tara Garrison. You can also find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Everything is Coach Tara Garrison across the board. And then, if you want to send me a message, guys, and let me know other guests or other topics you want to hear on the show, please let me know. I am here to serve you. So would love to hear from you, would love your feedback on the show. And if you share any of these episodes, please tag me on social media. It's Coach Tara Garrison.